Everybody on YouTube just missed the pitch, so you don't worry. Don't worry, you didn't miss much. You just missed me talking about this book, which I've talked about many, many times. And then if you want the Dead Tree edition, you got to go to Amazon. And if you're on Amazon, and by the way, thank you very much, Lisa, for that. If you do buy from Amazon, it's not like Amazon is the one that's printing it. They subcontract out to a local business, so don't feel like you're not helping local businesses when you're buying it on Amazon. And believe me, yes, I get it. I understand the angst about Amazon, but unfortunately, it's what we have right now. Oops, that's not me talking. All right, perfect. There you go. So, and to everybody on YouTube and everyone else on Facebook, good morning. Thank you for joining. Late night again last night. Got back into Canada much later than I thought I would, unfortunately, and then had a bunch of work to do before sleep, and so here I am. If I look like I'm low energy and I'm exhausted, I kind of am. So it is what it is. All right. So and what I also mentioned is check out my interview with Russell Brand. He did kind of like the preamble, or I guess the monologue, whatever you want to call, on YouTube. But then the full interview is on Rumble, and I may be releasing some segments of the interview with Russell Brand on my platforms and my feeds, so don't worry. And for everybody who is on YouTube, sorry for being so late. I wasn't actually that late. Just for whatever reason, the encoder didn't start playing. So I had been sitting here talking for 10 minutes, but I love you all. But people who are on locals didn't miss a beat right there. So honkingforfreedom.locals.com. I also released a video that yesterday was exclusive to locals, which I'll explain. Well, I guess right now, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. But that little video that I did on Twitter explaining DEF, which we'll talk about in a second, I uploaded the entire video, which is only a couple minutes long, maybe 2 or 3 minutes long. I uploaded the entire video just to the locals, people who subscribe to locals. I'm going to start doing a little bit more of that, just because some of them have a vested interest and are helping to support what are mounting legal bills. And a lot of that, but that's more on that sometime soon, by the way. Twitter Spaces tonight. So for those of you who are on Twitter, and good morning, everybody. Betty White, Nisha, Jesse, Tao, it's good to see you. I'm going to be in a Twitter space tonight with a friend of mine is hosting. For those of you who know, DJ Satoshi is his account online. He's going to be hosting the National Security Advisor to Nayib Bukele, he's the president of El Salvador. And I actually got to send DJ a couple of questions. So we're all going to be in a Twitter space tonight, which should be interesting, especially for Bitcoin newbies. And Jesse, you're one of them. Why would a country like El Salvador adopt Bitcoin as legal tender in their country? Like, why would they do that? So I think you'll get a lot of those answers for kind of newbies. So this is a good place for you to be tonight, Jesse. And Jesse, I know you're new to YouTube, you're new to Twitter, and well, this is the best way to learn. So hopefully we'll see you there. Yeah, Jesse, it's because you never rest. Well, not lately. Not lately. Things are quite busy. I do rest. I slept about 4 or 5 hours last night, and so good to tackle on the rest of the day. I'm going to be also today doing an interview with Rupa Subramania, who is a freelance journalist. She is actually how I met Rupa. It was very interesting. I reached out to through some people to someone in legacy media, and I said, I know all of the legacy media companies, which we're going to talk about in a second, all suck and they all do nothing but lie. But there's got to be somebody credible within legacy media that wants to tell the truth, that is will be fair and open-minded about things. So the person I was recommended to was Rupa. So I got her email address and I said, hey, Rupa, we're doing this the first press conference for the Freedom Convoy. I'd like to know if you would like to come. And at that point, she was doing a lot of subcontract work for the National Post, ironically, which we're going to be talking about. I now call them the National Putts. and I think maybe a good parody account for the National Putz might be coming. But she said, yeah, so she came. She was one of the people tied to Legacy Media. That was, I mean, she's independent. She's kind of an independent subcontractor journalist. But, you know, she was there, I mean, we think on behalf of Legacy Media, and I understand that there was some friction after that because Legacy Media only likes a narrative because they're all, if I can say this, full of shit. All of them. They're just all full of shit. So, but Rupa herself is amazing, and she really tries to focus on, at least from my experience, she's been very, very fair and factual and does the research, unlike the rest of the Legacy Media, they're quite lazy. Okay, so yesterday I did this video, and just to give a little bit more context on it, it's on my Twitter account. I just uploaded it to the Chinese Communist Party spyware TikTok, which hopefully is going to be banned within the year, and on Instagram, which is explaining DEF, diesel exhaust fluid. I don't have to get, it's only a minute-long video. It kind of explains it, but the reason I did is because there's an investigative journalist. Investigative journalist. The investigative journalist who's, I wonder if I could find, hold on. I think I might even be able to show you who this investigative journalist is. Oh, you know what? I should do this for the other thing I'm going to talk about today. So this is investigative journalist Laura Osman. And Laura works for the Canadian Press, which is supposed to, where should I put that? Maybe that's better. Which is supposed to be, I don't know, like kind of a newswire for Canada or whatever it is. But anyways, she wrote this piece, which was regurgitated, copied and pasted by the National Post. I explained in a previous episode how that all works, that basically there's a wholesale and retail end of journalism. The Canadian Press is kind of the wholesale version. They're like a newswire. When they run a story, a lot of the Legacy Media that subscribes to it will just pick and choose stories and just copy and paste them, and that's what their subscription pays for. And so it allows them just to take these, you know, bullshit artist stories and put it on their publication and take their reputation and flush it completely down the toilet, which is exactly what the National Post is in the middle of doing. So she wrote this piece, which is, to say it's garbage would be an insult to garbage. Like, it's just god awful. It's the worst. I've never seen such an inaccurate and deceptive take. I mean, I've seen a bunch of them around the Freedom Convoy, but you know, this is supposed to be from a newswire, factual. It was so it was to the point that it was gross. So what happened is this investigative journalist posted about, she posted what really annoyed me, the smear about that was regurgitated on the record by those liars who work for, you know, that woman who was, she used to work for the government as a prosecutor, and she was with Sexy Lee, and they were talking shit out of their ass about the fumes. I couldn't smell the fumes. It was making me crazy watching it during the commission, and then she just regurgitated this bullshit. Sorry about my language today. I'm tired and I'm annoyed. But anyways, she regurgitated this whole thing. Oh, the exhaust fumes, and you know, you smell the fumes, like the fumes are a national security risk. Okay, so first thing, as I explained, diesel trucks have had DEF for many, many years. What's DEF? Diesel exhaust fluid. It originally was, I think it still is, maybe it's a syntheticized version of bull's urine. It was just some technology that was discovered around diesel many years ago, that this fluid, you could spray it into the exhaust of a truck, and it basically will, I guess it will atomize the fumes, and then those fumes are carried into what's called a DPF filter, and they collect in a filter, which I have to pay $3,000 every once in a while to have that filter cleaned out. So because of that, there's no fumes. There's almost no soot. Well, yeah, my truck probably has none. No soot, no fumes. And when I say none, maybe it's reduced by a factor of 99.7% of when it didn't have a DPF filter. That's why in the video, I'm standing right next to my truck, maybe 3 feet away from the exhaust, in front of the DPF tank, explaining. Now, I'm sorry I couldn't convey smell through a video. If I could, I would. But you don't smell anything. And also, you notice I'm talking pretty much normally, and you can hear me talk despite the fact that the engine's running. You know why? Because modern diesel engines are pretty quiet, right? So she promulgated this fake narrative from a bunch of elitist snobs in the political class. Are we in the trucking industry call them a bunch of lying fuckers? In the political class that have never been near a truck, don't know how a truck operates, because they're above that, right? Because they're above us. They think themselves as they're high up on the total pole. We're just the plebs who drive trucks. We're just the small business owners, sort of thing. And so they have no concept of how a truck operates, what a DP. They wouldn't even know. They wouldn't even think to know. And this is from, by the way, an investigative journalist. An investigative journalist. And that also, by the way, this whole fume bullshit in Ottawa. So first you have trucks that have DEF systems and DPF filters, okay? A DPF, I think, is diesel particle filter, I think is what it is, if I'm not mistaken. The acronym could be wrong, forgive me. But most of the trucks aren't running 24 hours a day. You run them for 20 minutes, a half hour. When it's like minus 40 degrees, it'll keep the truck warm for maybe an hour, 2 hours if you got a space heater and an inverter inside the truck, or if you have a really powerful one, maybe longer. And then a bunch of trucks also have, I don't have one on mine, but many trucks, especially the long haul ones, I just never installed it in mine, have an APU. What's an APU? An APU is an external little engine that runs the heater and the electricity, the heater core electricity system of the truck with the engine off. It's a second little external engine that can run just to keep power in it. Now, I know the lefties, the scientists on Lefty, they hear engine and then they come to a bunch of conclusions. They have no idea what an engine is or how it works. And that catalyst engines often exhaust more purified air in certain cities than air that comes into the intake. Good example is in Athens, Greece. There was a test done with a Porsche 911 Turbo in 2003, I believe it was, when 911s first went to water-cooled a few years after. When the Turbo came out and they drove it through, I believe it was Athens, and they measured the air going into the intake of the engine versus the air coming out of the engine, and the air coming out of the engine was cleaner than the air going in, because Athens has a lot of soot, it has a lot of pollutants, and the cars are actually acting as a purifier to an extent. That's not perfect. There's still a small percentage of NOS that comes out, but the air in total was cleaner than the air that goes in. But the party of science that can't tell the difference between a boy and a girl, shockingly, knows nothing about engines and catalyst engines and how any of that works. But anyway, so she promulgated this lie. Laura Osman promulgated this lie from those other dirty smear merchants in the commission who lied under oath. And I think that is going to haunt them over time. So that's the first thing. Then she, in the articles, well, I mean, the whole article is a disaster. It's a dumpster fire, right? But then she says, later on in the article, says, quote, while protesters insist their blockades were peaceful, it's not insist, that's factually accurate, but okay. While protests, we'll rewrite this after. While protesters insist their blockades were peaceful and nonviolent, police discovered a stockpile of weapons at the border blockade in the small town of Coutts, Alberta, before the protest disbanded. Do you see the manipulation that's going on there? Can you see it? It's right in front of your face. Like, what I love about this sentence is not one thing in that sentence is accurate. It's all deceptive. Every word is deception. So let's rewrite it. Let's rewrite it just without. I haven't written it down. I'm just going to read it. While protesters factually observed the peaceful protest was indeed nonviolent, police 5,000 kilometers away in an unaffiliated protest claimed, although disputed, that some individual had weapons at Alberta. Now, she doesn't describe what kind of weapons. I thought words are violence, right? Don't we live in the era where words are violence? Maybe that was their weapons. They were talking, right? Like, it's so crazy. What is a weapon, right? What did somebody have a knife? Did somebody just say something mean? Like, I don't know. But this is complete horseshit. This is complete and utter horseshit. So I think from now on, we're just going to refer it to being Laura Osmond from now on. When you see this kind of completely fake and false narrative spew out of this puke coming out of the media, that's going to be Laura Osmond. But, the other thing is, we got to be charitable, because is this Laura Osmond's fault? Well, no. You know why? It's her editor. So in all of these fake news organizations, you got to see who the editor-in-chief is and the senior editor of the newspapers are. Those are the ones who are making the decisions to lie to you. Those are the people, and search their names. Go to, Toronto Star, go to editor-in-chief or senior editor, type in those names, find them online, and talk to them, because those are the people who are lying to you. Because what they do is they say things to their staffers like, I want a Freedom Convoy violence story. I want a Me Too story. I want a Pierre Poilievre extremist story. This is how they're crafting the narrative to lie to you. And it's open and clear manipulation. They know exactly what they're doing, and it's entirely intentional. This person, Laura Osmond, I'm willing to bet if you were to ask her, it was under the directive of her editor and editor-in-chief. That's just my guess. I could be wrong. But anyways. Oh, and the other thing is, she when she explains, police discovered a stockpile of weapons. What's a stockpile? Like somebody's trunk? Had it been sitting there for 6 months? Stockpiled? In a warehouse? Just a bunch of people saying mean things because words are weapons? Were those the stock? And what kind of weapons? You notice she doesn't say guns. She doesn't say guns, does she? Why? Because there are no guns? I don't know. Anyways. This is your investigative journalist. So funny. Oh, so funny. So I think what we can conclude is... I'll tell this story after. What we conclude with Laura is, one, there were no guns in Ottawa, and as the temporary Chief Bell, who got passed over promotion and shouldn't even be, it's not even employable as far as I'm concerned, and we'll deal with that over time, was forced to admit under oath that there were no guns in Ottawa. Remember that? I'm sure those of you who don't pay attention to fake news, they saw that. I'm going to get to everybody's comments in a second. I'm sorry. I'm on a roll, right? I just want to get through this stuff. Number two, investigative journalist Laura Osmond was not able to conclude there were no criminal or violent criminal charges laid in Ottawa. I say that because disputed, the whole criminal mischief, which some that doesn't exist. So they would use weasel words to say, oh, look at all these criminal charges. So I'm going to say nothing in line that was under the criminal code. There were no criminal code violations laid I shouldn't even say that. Let's say violent, because, again, the bureaucrats just use weasel words to deconstruct arguments, right? The investigative journalist, Laura Osman, could not come to the conclusion that while they try to promulgate this narrative that Albertan truckers went to Ottawa to, as the liars in the political class and the fake news say, overthrow the government, despite me being very clear on Jordan Peterson's podcast in our statement. We are not here to overthrow the government. That's what elections are for. The investigative journalist didn't see that and couldn't come to the conclusion, the very obvious conclusion, that, hey, if a bunch of rural Albertans are going to overthrow the government, they might bring a gun because they're rural Albertans. And none of them did, right? But what they did do is they had barbecues and fed homeless, fed people, had dance parties, and that sort of stuff. The investigative journalist, Laura Osman, was unable to uncover, Laura Osman, gumshoes, was unable to come to the conclusion that the truckers had set up soup kitchens and barbecues and were feeding the homeless and shoveling the streets in Ottawa. Investigative journalist Laura Osman was also unable to determine or to come to the conclusion, which is objective in fact, that the crime rate in Ottawa during the Freedom Convoy plummeted to almost zero because there were so many eyes on the street, presumably. Investigative journalist Laura Osman from the Canadian Press, and who promulgated this bullshit on the National Post, was unable to come to that conclusion, just to go by the City of Ottawa records, that the crime rate plummeted. Investigative journalist Laura Osman and the Canadian Press and all the dirty smear merchants in the fake news media was unable to determine the degree of bias of people testifying in the commission who worked for the government, who knew if they didn't lie under oath, they would put their political career or working career at risk. Unable to come to that. The investigative journalist was unable to conclude that. And I'll give you an example of this, because I was asked this on, an interview somewhere in the United States. It's kind of funny. I was asked about the testimony during the commission and the police testimony in particular. And I said, it was very interesting. And maybe because, I had family who worked for the government. I have, family in policing. So I'm a little bit aware of that culture and how it operates. You could see the two types of opportunists that were there. Two types, the opportunists and the non-opportunists, right? So Chief Pat Morris, who was the head of OPP Intelligence, who famously said about the Freedom Convoy, the lack of violence was shocking. Laura Osman couldn't figure that out, right? She apparently didn't hear that. The lack of violence was shocking from the most senior intelligence officer in the OPP, which is the largest intelligence branch in all of Canada, from what I understand, by the way, is the OPP. They have the most intelligence officers. Investigative journalist Laura Osman from the Canadian Press, who the National Post promulgated this bullshit, was unable to conclude what the senior intelligence officer said was the lack of violence was shocking. She didn't hear that. La, I don't want to. It's so funny. So you saw officers like him, but then you saw the other types. And I think it was Pat Morris who said, I've been on the force for 36 years, and I haven't seen this sort of peaceful demonstration in all my years of policing. And I thought, I know cops like that. He's at the end of his career. He doesn't, they say it more explicitly, he doesn't give a damn. He's done. He doesn't need to kiss anybody's ass anymore. He's moving on from policing. He's going to be retiring soon. So you're going to see some truth from him. But then you're going to see people like Slowly, who told truth in the beginning, just like during the convoy, and then lied through his teeth during the second half of his testimony. As well did, the woke supremacist chief priest, chief of police, or the temporary chief of police, who said, when I talk about violence, I don't mean violence as in the criminal code. Like, hey, dude, that's called violence. And he did the whole words is violence thing, right? So that dirty smear merchant is trying to save his career and apply for a job. He wants to be chief of police somewhere else. That's what he's trying to do. So all of the people who were lying to you under oath, because there really is no consequences, were doing so because it was all a job application. You could see who was telling the truth that doesn't care anymore. And maybe because I know police officers and I know kind of the culture, that's what's going on in policing right now. There are the people who are just counting down the days to retirement because of all this woke supremacist bullshit that they got to deal with. Like, oh, join the Asian Police Association in your detachment. Like all this neo-progressive crap that all of them are just getting sick and tired, but is being shoved down their throats. And that determines if they get promoted or not. So there are people who are coming in line to that. And this is very dangerous for policing in Canada. And then there's the people just counting down the days that want to get beyond this sort of nonsense. But investigative journalist Laura Osman was oblivious to all of this. She couldn't see any of that going on. There's your investigative journalist. And so what is this? This is something that I've spoken about in the previous episode. Remember I talked about narrative poisoning? That we saw narrative poisoning come from all sides. There were people attacking the convoy who, out of one side of their mouth, they support it, and then on the other side of their mouth, they're attacking those of us who are organizing and trying to keep everything at bay and, herd the cats and get everybody on the same team, right? That was one form of narrative poisoning. Dichter's a Fed, Tamara's stealing the money, or the treasurer's stealing the money, or they're all leaving the country, whatever. Who knows? There was so much crap going on, right? So that's one type of narrative poisoning. The other type is exactly this. It's exactly what you see in this article, where the narrative they're putting forward that they're desperate was, while protesters insist, I'm not going to repeat it, but what they've put in this article, that's narrative poisoning. Why? Because they know it was peaceful and loving. They know that. They were there. They saw it. The MPs and MPPs all saw it. They're all lying to you. And go figure, a politician lied to you for political gain. Because they think the way forward is to discredit this movement. Why? Because this movement was more powerful than any politician in Canadian history. That's why. And they don't want to play second fiddle. Because they've forgotten the word public servant. That we should be more powerful than them. And they are the servants of us. And they're going to learn that lesson very, very hard if they don't shape up pretty soon. Right? Anyways. No more convoys. This Convoy 2.0 bullshit. This is nonsense. All this does is help Trudeau. And whatever. Jesse, there was assault at the convoy by a resident on a protester. Yeah, and that girl Sexy Lee, who mysteriously got $150,000 from the Liberal Party when she graduated from, from Jolie, got $150,000 from her organization, but she's not linked to the Liberal Party, has somehow come up with a ton of money, millions of dollars, to launch a $450 million lawsuit against us. Who's funding that? I think that's going to be very interesting to find. Maybe we'll find an investigative journalist that's going to dig into that deeply and find all the connections behind the scenes as it would relate to Discovery. I don't know. I think that'd be very, very interesting. She was famously throwing eggs from her apartment. I don't know if it's her, but in the apartment complex that she was at, and she does seem like an obnoxious twat. So they were, a bunch of girls in that apartment were throwing eggs at protesters on the street. So I'm sure there's more to it. People want to be famous, they're going to get famous. Ben is pumped this morning. You know why? Because I'm so tired. Yesterday was Yesterday was kind of a long day, and but you know, I got a lot on my head, like we all do, and so much more that I haven't told you about yet. There is so much more happening down the pipeline. Like this, I saw a CTV article. The what's it called? This lawsuit between Brian Miller, who I'm sorry is a total piece of shit, and that other guy who is suing him, the conservative suing the conservative. You understand this is all them playing you, right? Like, do you get that? They're playing you. They're playing you for donations, just like they played you for donations. Like, let me explain what's going on. They raised $1.7 million on the backs of the Freedom Convoy to protect truckers and a legal defense, whatever. They're not defending me. They're not defending Chris Guerra. They're not defending Bridget. They're not defending Chad. They're not defending a whole bunch of people. So they just sucked up all these donations and shoved it up their own ass so they can keep it while the rest of us are screwed, right? That's what's going on. And that's what this Brendan Miller fake lawsuit with a conservative and a conservative is. Because you're going to see a fundraising campaign around this next. That's what they're going to do. Oh, help protect Brendan Miller. Ezra's going to get out there and say, oh, Ezra Miller's being sued for this Nazi flag. Like we know how it all works in politics, this fleecing of you and your goodwill that happens from the political establishment. They're screwing you. That's what this is. I'm going to talk more about that in the future, but a little bit of word of warning to them. If they think they're going to allow myself and many of the others who organize this to sit by the side and say nothing, oh, they're fucked. They have no idea what I have planned for them if they keep this bullshit up. But that's what that is. If you didn't know that, sorry, but that's what it is. That's really what it's about. Yeah, Ezra eye roll. Ezra eye roll. Biggest news story on the planet, and he didn't upload it. Like, and somebody came up to me, who's actually very nice from Rebel News, at the Jordan Peterson event, and he said to me, we heard you talk about the that news conference, that press conference you did with Tamara the day you arrived, as I keep describing. It would have been the biggest video in Rebel News' history, and they would have broken this global story with the exclusive interview for the #1 news story on the planet that I was getting 10,000 emails or messages an hour from news sources all over the world who wanted to talk to me about it. And so he said, and Rebel News didn't upload it. They spiked it. And so he said to me, nice guy, by the way, and I understand people work in institutions. They have, they have restrictions. I get it. But he says, just so you know, we still have the interview. We're doing a documentary, and we're kind of taking pieces from it and putting it up. And I said to him, hey, listen, that's no good to me a year after the protest. You know when I needed that? I needed that when it was the biggest news story in the world. Because that would have been very useful for me to enter into evidence in this commission. So now you've gotten screwed because you had our entire story, myself and Tamara, for 45 minutes, an hour, 50 some odd minutes, whatever it was, explaining everything in our full context before the mainstream media even knew what was going on. And I could have submitted it into evidence in the commission, but Ezra Levant prevented that from happening because he spiked the story. I'm never going to shut up about this. Like, it's just crazy. It did so much damage to us. But I also didn't know at the time that him and Keith Wilson have been very, very close friends since law school. So, does that mean anything? I don't know. Maybe? Who knows? All right. Jimmy says, I watched 100 gigs of data from multiple streams. It was peaceful till the cops come. And they were violent. They were the violent ones. That's what I've seen. Yes. But the conservatives want to lie to you. They want to tell you that it was peaceful in the beginning, but it got out of hand. That's why our lawyer, who became a witness, said it attracted extremists like moth to a flame. That's the guy who's supposed to be defending the convoy. He wasn't defending the convoy. He was defending the political establishment. Because the conservatives do not want us, this Freedom Convoy movement, to be exponentially more popular than any politician in Canadian history, and that's what it is. So, Brendan Miller's, yeah, it could be parliamentary protection. You know, honestly, they're all playing fucking games, all of them. I'm so annoyed with them. It's unbelievable. Anyways, Betty White, you're feisty this morning. Like, am I too feisty? Should I dial it back? I don't know. I'm just got a lot to deal with today, and it was a busy night, and I was dealing with. So I put this video up yesterday about the DPF filter. By the way, so have I made the case for narrative poisoning, that this is what this smear merchant, the Laura Osman, has done for the Canadian press and for the National Post? Is that very clear? This is more narrative poisoning. And that's the sort of narrative poisoning you saw about some of the other people who were Convoy leaders until they got on the stand in the commission and said, oh, I had very little to do with the convoy. And then once the commission's over, they start asserting themselves as the leader of the commission, leader of the convoy, those sorts of people. That all of that was narrative poisoning as well. The smears against Tamara, the smears against myself, coming from various political parties, those were all narrative poisoning to lie to you. They're all trying to lie to you because much like during the Freedom Convoy protest, they were all trying to gain control of this movement and of you, and they're still trying to do the same, right? That's why you want truth? This is where you'll find it. This is why we put so much time into this, so you can hear the truth and you can see what's going on. But anyways. Keep shouting the truth, BJ. You are awesome. Nor should you shut up about it. 100% you have made the case. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I want to, Amanda, I want to label all liberals as racist because their leader is, but I have more class than they do. So I read most news articles now like I'm reading a child's fairy tale. Yes, but that's why I say Prime Minister Blackface. I often refer to him as the most racist person to hold office in Canadian history. Because, you know, that firstly, I believe it's true. And given the whole blackface antics, I mean, who does that? Has he never seen Mississippi burning? Like, how retarded is he? Like, he's got to be the stupidest human being to walk the face of the earth. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care if he's young, he's old, he's an idiot. Like, he's just an idiot. Anyways. Sorry. So anyways, I was particularly annoyed because I started to get these, I wasn't annoyed. It was as these trolls were responding to my DEF video explaining why trucks don't have fumes and emissions and basically no soot or any of that sort of stuff. I'll get to that in a second. Anyways, so they started. One of the guys says they thought he was clever. Oh, well, you could ask him about a regen. And I'm like, the regen gets done on the highway, and all that does is it pumps even more fluid into the exhaust to, if there's a soot buildup, to move all that soot and to atomize the fumes and put them into the DPF filter. That's what it does. Can somebody explain this to Berna? Maybe she's new here. How come ones like Tamara and them stories were different than yours? I'm not sure what you're saying because Tamara corroborated what I told her. And I'll give you an example. This is why, for me, Brendan Miller's a complete and total piece of shit. Now, all of them are. Because he gets up, you know, knowingly lying. I don't know, he's confused, or maybe somebody told him something that was untrue. Maybe he didn't know. I don't know. But he says, you broke into Tamara's Twitter account. What do you think? It's like a vault? You breaking into a car? Is that what Twitter is? Like, that's not how it works. It's linked to a cell phone number. And in this case, it was linked to Tamara's cell phone number. And she asked me to run her Twitter from before we arrived in, I think it was before we arrived in Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken. That was me talking, by the way, when everybody loved Tamara and her account, all that stuff, that was me. Guilty as charged. So, and it says, you broke in, and then Tamara was the next witness after me, and what did Tamara do? She corroborated what I said. She said, no, Benjamin had my Twitter account from the very beginning, because Benjamin is really good at Twitter. So he was either unknowingly lying or knowingly lying, I don't know, but there's so much bullshit and fuckery going around those lawyers and all those people who raised the $1.7 million that I want a piece of it. I want it because we have to defend ourselves. Myself, Chris Guerra, Chad Eros, Bridget, a few others. Do you not think that money that was raised on the backs of, I should ask you in a poll actually, that money that was raised on the backs of the Freedom Convoy for a legal defense, don't you think that that money should be, some of that money should be kicked over to our legal team? Is that not fair? I mean, they used our reputations to fund the money. Where's the money going? They also then went to court to ask for $450,000 from the escrow money for the commission. Well, what's the $1.7 million for? I guess it would be it's for myself and for Bridget and for Chris and all of us to defend ourselves. So, I don't know. I encourage you to send an email and to ask the JCCF how much of that money that you raised, that $1.7 million, are you giving to the other board members of the Freedom Convoy and the road captains and people like Joe Jensen as well, who got fed up with their antics and just quit? Are they going to help defend him? Is that what the $1.7 million is for Joe and myself? Because we're I mean, this is a class. First, we need to fight certification. Are they going to fight certification, or is it their interest for it to get certified so they can fundraise more money? Because I don't want it to be certified. It's a nonsense lawsuit, as far as I'm concerned. At least my interpretation. Diverge Media. Convoy lawyers told the government narrative with one difference. They said the EA was justified, but the government said it was. They played politics instead of doing their jobs as lawyers, in my humble opinion. Yeah, Diverge Media has done a couple of articles on this already. I encourage you to support independent media. Go to Diverge Media's website and support Greg and his team, because they're working very, very hard on trying to get some of these stories out. Bridget says, yeah, there's 7 of us. There's 7 of us that don't have representation, yet they've raised $1.7 million. Where's that money going? Right? Is that what's paying for, what's his name? Hurt Locker Marazzo's tailored suits? I thought he lives in his car. You got to check that from Canada Day. He gave a speech and he started yelling at all the freedom fighters, calling them, what do you say? He didn't call them stupid, but he was just really aggressive towards them. And he's trying to defend the cops who beat us all, right? Anyways, it is what it is. Good morning, Bridget. And good morning, Keith, and everybody. I really know it's turned down. Okay, I'm sorry. I got so many comments I got to catch up on. When does the case go to court for certification? I have no idea. I've just filed an appeal. For those of you who read in CTV News that we were trying to get access to some of that money to defend ourselves, we're filing an appeal. So who knows? Who knows when it'll be? I will keep you all up to speed, I promise. You don't need the fake news media. I'll just tell you what's going on, sort of thing. We should have only raised funds via cash. They never got their hands on. No. Listen, they could have. I told the Freedom Corp guys, I'm like, you can fundraise as much as you want. But the people around him says, no, you can't fundraise because then it's illegal and you'll get into trouble. And I can't believe people believe that. Anyways, it is what it is. So, backing Rupa is amazing. Yeah, she's great. Only the Globe and Mail and Convoy smell their reporting. I don't know what that means. This is a problem when you go back, right? Is there any update on the POEC? No, we will find out at the report at the end, and we'll see what happens in February. What's this? Diverge? No, that's his pension money from. Okay, you guys are having a conversation back and forth. Sorry. Jesse, who contacted the JCCF on behalf of the truckers in the first place? No one. So the way it worked, I know you got into. Oh, Jesse, you just got the book, right? I didn't explain this in too much detail, but Bridget can verify this. I saw somebody came to my hotel room on February the 4th. This is just before I broke my ankle. And said, you're not going to believe it. Now the lawyers just did a video, right? Because we were dealing with, messaging and having consistent messaging about freedom and positivity, all that sort of stuff, right? So I just said, what are you talking about? What lawyers? Because I met one lawyer before who was setting up the corporation, and that's it. And I said, what lawyers? They said, oh, the lawyers representing you. I'm like, well, news to me. What lawyers do I have? So they said, well, they're at the Ark Hotel. Go there. And okay, so I grabbed my computer. I went over to the Ark Hotel. Well, first, I shouldn't say that. They showed me the video, and then I lost my shit. I was like, what the spend all this time on positive messaging and positive mood and behavior, because I knew from having family in policing that is what the police are monitoring. And if we could keep the mood and behavior positive, we would be fine, which we were, because even Chief Slowly said on the 3rd or 4th that this requires a political solution, not a policing solution. He didn't use the term mood and behavior, but he said because everything is so peaceful, his communicating mood and behavior was positive. So then this idiot lawyer shows up, does this video. I get it on my screen. I'm like, so I go across to the Ark Hotel, and Bridget can vouch. I was quite aggressive in my tone and in some of my wording. And that's when I met the lawyers who said, oh, is this BJ? I'm like, yeah, this is BJ. What the fuck did you just do, is what I said, I think. Put it in the book. And, oh, we're sorry, yeah, we just thought we were doing what's best. I'm like, you're not a spokesperson. What are you doing? What are you doing, right? And I felt particularly, anyways, whatever. I felt bad for other people who also wanted to speak, but at least I was trying to get them to speak on TikTok, which was actually working quite well at that point. And he said, well, okay, well, we got bad news for you. I'm like, what bad news? Well, you've been served with at that point, $4.8 million class action suit. I'm like, for what? For the honking and whatever. I'm like, what honking? It's quiet right now. Like, this is on the February 4th. It's already quiet. And he said, oh, but don't worry. We're going to represent you. Because, the JCCF, you know who they are? I'm like, yeah, I've heard of them. And we're going to be your counsel on the class action suit. We're going to help you out. And but we have to have go to court via an injunction tomorrow or something like that. And Bridget, I'm sure you can convey that we were stuck. We were, okay, well, we had a million problems we were dealing with. We had this organization that we thought was on our side. Clearly they're not. That said, we're going to help defend you guys and whatever. And like, okay, we all looked at each other, said, I don't know, we got to do an injunction. We're going to, and they're like, yeah, well, just sign this retainer. It's not going to cost you anything. They really sold it to us. Like, it's not going to cost you anything. We'll take care of it. We'll do it, whatever. And now I'm starting to think how much of this is coordinated amongst the broader political class, right? Who knows? And so there we go. That's how we got in. We just it was kind of Better Call Saul, from Breaking Bad. That's the type of representation we had. Oh, you're in trouble, but here we go. We got a retainer you can sign right here. And because we were just desperate and dealing with so many problems, that's how they inserted themselves into the process. And I found out after, this is the sort of thing that happens quite frequently. Bridget, yes, you were yelling and left your laptop on the table, which I covered with paper. Yeah, thank you very much. We were not supposed to have electronics in the room. Oh, I didn't know that. You know what? I didn't know that. So, and then you broke your ankle. Yeah, because I went back to get my laptop and I broke my ankle. So instead of coming back, I ended up, on the couch with everybody around me, by the way. And Bridget, you were amazing. Miranda was pumping me full of drugs. She was amazing. Chad, we had just had some friction. But, he's got a good heart, and he sat beside me for like 25 minutes. The doctors came down to look at me. Like, for me, it was a moment where everybody kind of came together. It was really, really kind of nice, except for the dirtbag lawyers. They were nowhere to be seen. I wonder why. Fuckers. So, anyways, I was mentioning before that the DEF video I did yesterday, that seems to have gotten under the skin of some of the lefties who just want to promulgate this narrative poisoning that, oh, the fumes made it unbearable to live in Ottawa. Like, come on, what are you kidding? It's like there's not trucks everywhere, all over every city, all over the world. Like, go to Latin America where they don't service their trucks. Yeah, okay, you know, I mean, although even it's changed there, but it used to be, you know, 15 years ago in Medellin, it was quite difficult, or in Cali, or in Barranquilla. It was, you know, it was difficult with the fumes, but things have progressed so much that there's nothing. Anyways, so somebody responded to that video. I love this. This was great. The response was, cite your sources to convey every truck at the free dumb... so clever. They think it's clever. Free dumb convoy has this mechanism in place, clowny. And then the next sentence, which got me, which I thought was hysterical. Having walked through the free dummers blockade daily. What? Okay. I can confirm the reporting was accurate. Wait. Let's go back. Having walked through the free dummers blockade daily. Is that a blockade? If you can walk through an area and walk through a city unimpeded, is that a blockade? I mean, because I've seen blockade in third world countries. I can tell you what a blockade is, right? Like, try going to the West Bank, irrespective of your political persuasions. If you're in Israel, you try to go and you want to go to the West Bank, whether you're coming in Israel or out of Israel. That's a blockade. That's what a blockade is for, and it's for security reasons, all whatever. Maybe we shouldn't take that example because everybody always gets their heads up because they know nothing about Israel. But walked through the free dummers blockade daily. You can't walk through a blockade. I'm sorry, the Stasi would take issue with the laziness of our ability to blockade people, right? Maybe Russia, USSR is a better example, or Eastern and Western Europe, right? That's a blockade, right? The Berlin Wall, that's a blockade. Stupid. So dumb. I was walking through your blockade every day. Yeah, so there's no blockade. So that's why I responded on Twitter. It's so funny. Anyways, but all of this reminds me of, you know, have you ever seen the movie Wag the Dog with, I believe it's Dustin Hoffman, if I'm not mistaken, from the 80s? These people, what are they? There's the only way to describe them in, from my perspective. These people here, the people who pull the Laura Osman trick, they're just dirty smear merchants. They use the word investigative journalists, but they're PR agents. And what do you learn in public relations? You learn how to lie to people. That's why I was never really good at it. I got to believe in something to be able to sell it. If I don't, I can't do it. It's just not my thing. This is a public relations person posing as a journalist for a fake news newswire, and a fake news organization, the National Post, is promulgating this bullshit. So this is across the political spectrum. It's across the aisle. This is not just left-wing media. This happens on right-wing media as well. It happens in all media. So don't allow yourself to be Laura Osmond, right? Look for the words, the careful wording, and the attempt at persuasion. When she says, while the protesters insist their blockades, no blockades, because somebody just said they were walking through it, were peaceful and nonviolent, police discovered a stockpile of weapons. Not guns. What are they, nunchucks? Is that what they discovered? Somebody had a box of nunchucks for their karate class in the back of their truck, and that's the weapons, right? At the Coutts border, which is what, 5,000, 4,000 kilometers away. Nothing to do with Ottawa. Not even close, not even remotely. This is how they lie to you, right? They use this. They use lie by omission. And there's also an excellent book I suggest everybody reads, Lying by Statistics. which is why for me, on the whole COVID, the cerveza sickness, medicine, whatever, I don't believe any of the data. Because everybody's utilizing the same manipulative tactics and lying by statistics. We won't know what went on for years. That's just my personal opinion. But I support everybody's right to freedom and to do what they want with their own bodies and to not be tracked by that ArriveCan data app. Something that these PR agents who know nothing about history or what Eastern Europe's recent history or what China goes through right now, they have no clue of. Or if they do, they just ignore it and they're just to lie to you. So it is what it is. Yeah, that's another narrative that they spun, Bridget. Remember the arson story? And the guy had he had green hair and was like gender binary or something like that. Like, yeah, I don't think that's the truckers. Call me crazy. I don't think that's a trucker. Anyways. But this is all good. You know why? Let's get to the positive aspect of all of this. Because we all can now communicate. I can now sit here and pick apart their BS stories. Because we now have these vehicles to communicate and to show people. We just got to bring the normies into the space. And even I have normies in my life who didn't understand the Freedom Convoy, who started to read this book, which talks about Bridget as one of the people at the very beginning, the catalyst of the convoy, who helped gather everybody together, her and Chris, and reached out to everybody online. This is the story of what happened. Now, I guess Laura Osman isn't paid to read my book, but if she did, she might have a different perspective. And I do hope that there's enough pressure and momentum from the side of objectivity and rationality and truth that it'll over time encourage some of these people just to sit back and say, all right, let me read Dichter's stupid book, right? And then realize that I can't believe what I was doing and what I was saying. And this is a good time of the year to do it, right? But we have these platforms. Twitter has become far more biased towards free speech than it ever has. I'm here on Locals, honkingforfreedom.com, where I don't have to worry about what I say. That's why I put up the whole video on Locals. Rumble is growing. Getter is growing. Like, all of these platforms are evolving. And Odyssey, if I can ever sync my YouTube channel with Odyssey, I'll have that. Why people are still on Facebook, I don't understand. That's the only reason I still broadcast to Facebook. But eventually I won't, and hopefully sooner rather than later when people get off of Facebook. But I don't know. I'm optimistic for the future. This is all good stuff, because look back to like 3 years ago when censorship was at, or maybe 2 years ago, when censorship was at its maximum. Look how quickly things are changing. And at some point, the legacy media, the fringe legacy media, has done so much damage to themselves. I even know normies who are just telling me, yeah, I don't trust a word they say anymore. They just don't trust it, right? Next thing they got to do is turn it off. So they don't trust it. Great. Next step, cancel your newspaper subscriptions and turn it off. And go out to... that's why I think Twitter is going to be the center point of media in the future. It's going to destroy all these newspapers that are lying to us. Because you can go directly to the source. You don't need to read about the Freedom Convoy organizers or the Freedom Convoy spokesperson from CTV. You can come right here and listen to me and talk to me directly and ask me direct questions. You don't need them anymore. And that's why I'm so optimistic. And I think we are really on the cusp of this golden age. And there's nothing but good things coming down the future, I promise. Really, it's going to be amazing. So... like ambulance or tow trucks that people are saying not nice things about certain conservative organizations and journalists and locals. You guys are amazing. It won't cost you anything, just your soul. You're so awesome. I love you. The locals viewers, you guys are amazing. I lost my daughter over 2 effing flags in COVID. Yeah. Just give it time. Give it time, Bridget. It's going to be, I know. All right. So all of that to say, despite my, fired out of the cannon, as Betty White said, and energized today, this is all, I'm not being negative. I mean, I'm talking about negative things because they just lie about us. But I'm not upset. I think it's hysterical. I think it's funny that they keep doubling down on this strategy that destroys their reputation. And these organizations could be so influential and powerful in the age of binary directional media. But they're just too stupid to realize it. No, okay, well, you want to destroy your business model, you'll have to explain that to your shareholders. And I would argue that this doubling down on the woke supremacist narrative is in violation of the fiduciary duty of executives of these media companies. And they should be investigated for, I don't know if it's quite fraud, but violation of their fiduciary duties to shareholders, because they are intentionally driving their companies into the toilet. And if you're a shareholder in any of these companies, Bell Media or whatever, I think it's time for you to start putting pressure on your executives and saying, hey, what is this woke bullshit? I want news and objective facts, because if not, maybe I'm going to file a complaint with the Exchange Committee because you're not abiding by your fiduciary duty to make the news wing of my organization profitable. You're actually costing us our reputation and our profits. That's how you get them. But you need somebody with a lot of weight behind them to help do that. But that's one of many strategies. There's so many things that we can do. It's just going to take time, one at a time. First thing is this book, and try to get it in front of as many people who didn't understand the Freedom Convoy as possible. It's not going to change everybody's minds, but it is going to change some of them. And that's what you want to get. You're not going to get the hardcore, politicized activists, but you'll get people in your family, in your neighborhoods that just want to hear the truth. So that's all good stuff. All right. I need to I get a bunch of comments. I got to run. I'm running late. It's 10:30 already. I love you all. I want to thank you all for being here, and Bridget and Jesse. Jesse, you're amazing. Jesse, thank you for joining the chat during the Russell Brand conversation. I noticed that just before he switched over to camera for me. I'm going to try to splice out some of that interview and put it on some of my platforms and promote his links so some of you see it. Tonight, Twitter Space with the National Security Advisor to El Salvador. And I'll be doing an interview with Rupa Subramania today as well. And more good stuff's coming down the pipeline. A bunch of interviews actually lined up for the new year as well. So I will keep pushing forward and helping to get the truth out there. And hopefully those of you around you who are still confused will open up over time. And maybe conversations around the Christmas table, will help change some minds. I'm doing what I can. All right. Okay, I love you all. I got to run, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.